Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about Judge Scott McAfee's order denying the disqualification motion, not ordering it. But that's just the headline. And the very close second headline is finding based on an appearance of impropriety that either Willis and her office have to step down or Wade has to. Man, let me give the legal designation for this case now. It is a god awful mess. Man, it is really sort of all bound up in law and politics and nasty stuff, an inch below the surface of the opinion. Let's start with the opinion. First, as you know, respecting as I generally do Scott McAfee, I nevertheless thought he let this go way too far upriver and have an evidentiary hearing that just kind of left people with black eyes all around when the defendants, Michael Roman, joined by Donald Trump, had just not come forward with anything solid on financial conflict of interest, or even then at appearance of, though perhaps they were able to develop during the hearing. But that is and always was the kind of core issue, and that's what made the motion itself both far-fetched and something of a political hit job, because there's this whole embarrassing, nasty, squalid situation involving the affair, and when it started, that really shouldn't have been the big focus here, but inevitably was just outside the courtroom in Fulton County, in all of Georgia, an important political state in the national election, and therefore in the country. Okay, so the bottom line, most important part of the ruling in legal terms, I think, is impeccable. There is no financial conflict of interest here. A financial conflict of interest alone would justify disqualifying Fani Willis and her office. That would have to be something where there's an interest in doing something other than just the solid, vigorous, fair prosecution of the defense. Like, for some reason, you have a financial stake in one result or another, or in extending the case, or just playing it out, and none of that ever seemed there was really no plausible theory there. And McAfee was sensible and solid in saying, look, they've brought up these 10-cent or $10 kinds of relationships. It may well be true that Wade, during their relationship, paid for stuff. He actually had a little swipe at the testimony from Willis and Wade that it couldn't be confirmed about, and there's a little bit of suspicion with all the testimony about her paying in cash to pay him back. But all of that is completely secondary. The question that he properly zeroed in on is there any reason to think that any decision making the elected district attorney made in the case somehow was driven by her financial interest? So fine, he buys her flowers, fine, even assuming or setting to the side, when it started, whether he actually paid for more as part of their relationship. No reason to think that, therefore, no reason to think financial conflict of interest, therefore, motion denied, therefore, end of story. Except no, that wasn't the end of story. So he then went on in the part of the opinion that's going to not just live, but like kind of resonate in neon and at deafening volume as long as Willis is prosecuting this case. And I'll get to that in a moment. So he could have gone either way on the case law, I think. Well, I'm going to look into this more, but there's a question. He then delves into appearance of impropriety. That's always the kind of residuum is the legal term, or residue of what's in when there's recusal or disqualification in the air. Okay, is there a conflict or an appearance of a conflict, appearance of impropriety? He found that there was in the actual relationship, and then a little bit more. So the absolute worst 3 words in the opinion that will live on, and you'll hear again and again from Republicans from Fulton County apparatchiks up to Donald Trump: an odor of mendacity remains. And what that means is, he says, neither side was able to conclusively establish by a preponderance of the evidence when the relationship evolved into a romantic one. The bigger point there is, depending on how he adjudicated the motion, it was an irrelevancy. I look, it's clear that Wade's partner was bobbing and weaving and believed the relationship had started early. Both Wade and Willis testified it didn't. For all kinds of human and political reasons, I think there's cause to doubt that. But so what, one could have said, but now one can't say it, because he uses that to do a pretty aggressive and intrusive order, but one I think that's going to hold up, where he says, you got a choice. Either you can discharge Wade, or you and the entire office can go, which is not much of a choice, I think, if you're Fani Willis. Though, again, I will get back to that. But this is a pretty tough opinion, I think, from McAfee. And the whole episode, again, a judge who I think has run his courtroom commendably, seems thoughtful, prepared, etc., has really indulged this kind of bottom-feeding motion, sort of soap operatic based on the affair, more than I think he should have, and most judges would. But there you have it. So the big point here is, in no way does this opinion put to rest the whole seamy aspect of the case that sort of came out of nowhere and has freighted it, and made it kind of limp, trying to go forward. And it's already a case, of course, being RICO and so many defendants, that it's a vehicle that, if it's not really clean and well adjusted, and can easily stumble off road anyway. Now, so that's the ruling. Okay, so let's talk about what will Willis do. You think it's an easy choice to bounce Wade, and that part, if she's choosing between the two, the question for her is, does she stay on the case? And I'll just say that is, an ultimate political and legal question down in Georgia, encompassing factors like, does she think she can do it better than anyone? What does she think is in the best interest of the case? But also, she's got a primary coming up in a couple months on, I believe, the 21st of May. There's going to be now a lot of people, maybe even like national dollars, coming in to kind of come after her. The legal setting that you might have thought McAfee has settled now gives rise to a huge cloud of a political setting that probably doesn't go away as long as she remains on the case. On the other hand, certainly from the standpoint, as I understand it, of Fulton County Democrats, they think she's been doing an excellent job in the Trump prosecution. It is her sort of calling card now, and the basis of her reputation and sort of future advance in Georgia. So it is all messy and mixed up, considerations of what's in the best interest of the case and considerations of what's in her political interest, which is something you can't, ignore or discount. That's the way the system works. And that includes, by the way, dollars. Will dollars now, will her contributions somehow dry up, nosedive, and will national dollars or Republican dollars go in to try to somehow topple her? And remember, it's not just a matter of toppling her. For the interests of the National Republican Party, i.e., its standard bearer, now established, one Donald Trump, defendant in this case, maybe what they most want is to just keep this alive, have the, we have had to date, this case has seemed solid and very damaging to Trump, both legally, the prospect of going to jail and the like, but more than that, keeping certain evidence like the phone call to Raffensperger on January 2nd really front and center. And now it seems to me this situation kind of kicks it to the side, and what may remain front and center is, when did the relationship start, and was Willis lying and the like, even if, and this much I assume, Wade is gone. So she could right now, could Willis appeal, say, why did he go into appearance of impropriety? That wasn't necessary. And who is he to tell me that I have to fire Wade or step down myself? I think she could do that. And my take on her, she's got, I think, I imagine this opinion is somewhat wounding, and the negative parts, just sort of human nature, will jump out her, and she'll feel some umbrage at McAfee's sort of, oversight here. Oh, another thing he did that's going to keep living on in Georgia, he specifically took her to task for playing the race card, as he put it in her speech in church when these accusations first surfaced. So she, I think, privately or with her circle of advisors, is fuming today. And one of the things she's maybe trying to think about is take an appeal from this order and say, he found no financial conflict of interest. That should have been the end of it, full stop. But man, that's a very precarious role for her to take. I don't think is likely to result in reversal. And so, there's a sort of rule of holes that applies here. When you're in a hole, stop digging. That also goes, of course, to the huge national issue. Will this case be tried before November? It was teed up to be tried in the summer. That already was dicey. And I just have to think, with this opinion and all it portends, and her decision, a possible challenge to her decision by defendants and the like, becomes pretty easy for them to drag it on. And I think, even though it's nominally on the table for a case that could be heard before November, I have to think, as a practical matter, we scratch it and assume it won't happen. And that's, for us, the sort of second headline here, looking at the case. Remember, she's actually said herself, with jury selection and the like, very cumbersome in a RICO trial in Georgia, and especially this one, it wouldn't be tried before November 2024 anyway. But others have been looking more closely, wondering if it were possible. And so that, to me, that puts this one very unlikely, almost certain not to be completed. Maybe a thin chance of still beginning before November. But where does that bring us? We already know the main evidence, and there won't be a conclusion. And then, just down in Georgia, this is, I think, a gift by and large to Republicans, because it changes the subject, or it can change the subject in the eyes, certainly, of all the MAGA types. And then there's the important kind of cadre in Georgia, anyway, of the sort of Kemp, very ambitious governor here, and I would say Raffensperger, and I would say McAfee, a sort of cohort of non-MAGA Republicans that I think figures in the political dynamic in Georgia. And McAfee, too, up for election, and Willis, now a polarizing figure within Georgia politics. So all of that, in not fully clean or predictable ways, I think just cuts in favor of a delay to the extent the defendants and Donald Trump wanted. And we know what that extent is, namely off the charts. That's exactly what they want. So the ability now for the case, not to go forward, but for him to be able to beat the war drums of, it's all brought against him by a prosecutor about whom there is an odor of mendacity. That's where I think we are right now in, I'm sorry to say it, in March 2024. And, I think the legal and political are hopelessly entangled in a way that overall plays more to Trump, certainly, than it did before this issue surfaced. Ending where I started, it is a god-awful mess. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.